Well, they've only gone and done it, haven't they? Today's the day. Article 50. What can I say? I mean, we've talked about the ridiculous kind of illegitimacy of the whole process. I mean, there's a government elected by 24% of the people or of the electorate who have taken a referendum which was voted on. Well, for the Leave vote was 36% of the electorate. We can go on about those figures and how, it's a minority of people each time. Tory governments come and go. They're obviously terrible things, but at least we can undo what they do most of the time. But this referendum is pretty much, well, we'll see. I mean, hopefully we can undo it. But what I wanted to say really isn't so much about the unfairness or the lack of awareness of some of the voters who voted in this referendum, or the lies that came out of, I mean, let's face it, the Leave side, most of the Remain side, the Remain side, it was a bad campaign, but as we've discussed before, projections of what might happen aren't lies, whereas we send 350 million a week to the EU is a lie. But again, old arguments. What I really want to express today is my anger, and I think this is something we shouldn't be afraid of doing. I want to express my anger at the people who voted to leave. Some of them would have done it fully aware of the consequences. Some of them wouldn't. Both of them deserve our anger, because really voting in an election when you don't really know what you're doing is bad enough. But one of these constitution changing elections, you get people saying, I voted Leave because I know I want straight bananas, or it was something to do, or I want to reduce immigration. Reducing immigration could have happened, but of course they've all come out now saying actually immigration won't change. What I'm angry about is that people who vote Leave were fully aware, or they should have been fully aware, that they are taking away freedoms from everyone. Not just freedoms from people now, but freedoms from our children and our children's children, in theory, because there's no guarantee we'll get back into the EU. So in 15 years' time, when my children are going to university, and they won't have the option of a free education in Europe, they'll be stuck in a country with the most expensive university education in the world. What am I going to say to them? They can't go abroad. Their opportunities are reduced. Whatever happens in this country, we are kind of tied we're chained to a hard right-wing rock that's sinking to the bottom of the sea. We can't escape. The people who selfishly, they want their little England, but they've tied us all to it too. And I'm kind of furious that now it's, just accept the result, get over it. Why should I accept the result? You've taken a huge amount of opportunity and freedom from me and my family. We've lived our whole lives, or certainly I have, almost all my life, with the freedom to go and live and work in Europe and be educated in Europe. And we've done very well as a country out of that. We're the 7th richest nation in the world. Before Europe, obviously we were being bailed out by the IMF and all that sort of thing. We weren't doing so well, were we? And so people have taken the prosperity that this has brought us and our generation, and they've basically denied future generations that prosperity because of some misguided idea that Brussels is bureaucratic and undemocratic and all those other things. And of course, to some extent, you could argue it is. But for us, in our monarchy, with our unelected upper house, who've got jobs for life, and our ridiculous electoral system, which has resulted in a majority government on 24% of the vote, we are the last people to lecture anyone on democracy. Actually, Europe is pretty good. I mean, there's lots of problems. I mean, I'd like to see the European Parliament have more power, but it's a good model. And you don't get over your problems by just hiding from them. And this whole idea that, you get people celebrating, we're leaving the EU, it's going to be brilliant. And at the same time, they're kind of ignoring Michael Gove saying, let's get rid of environmental protections now, and working time directive, that can go. Because it's always been the hard right in charge of Brexit and who are the champions of Brexit. Your rich people who are just waiting to reduce your workers' rights. People like Gove, people like Farage, who's today or yesterday said he'll leave Britain if Brexit doesn't work out. Of course he will, because he's rich. And what has happened now is, because of Brexit, international travel and living abroad is something that will only be available to the rich. The freedom for all of us without permission or having to pay to go and live abroad is being taken away. There's so many things that are wrong-headed about what's happening and how it hurts the poorest, and yet it was always the technique of the right to rely on the people who have the least to support the very changes in rules which are going to hurt them the most. We get this with Tories all the time, and we got this with Brexit. It's telling the poor, oh yeah, there's these poorer people who are the problem. It's the immigrants. It's not the immigrants. It's I know you've said this before many times. It's not immigrants that are filling up your schools. It's the schools not being built and your council housing not being built by the rich who are in charge, and it is overwhelmingly the rich. And I have very little time for people on the left who argued for Brexit. Oh, it'll be a good chance for us to get away from corporate rule and all that sort of stuff. Rubbish, absolutely rubbish. If you are misguided enough to not realise that the people in charge of Britain are the hardest of the hard right, it makes the people in the European Union look pretty much like socialists, all of them. Because now we've got May and Gove and all those guys basically rigging the system. This is a coup by the right. It's throwing away decades of what has been obtained by unions and protests and occasional socialist governments or even left-wing governments. All that is being thrown away. You wait. They're already talking about it. And it is becoming a corporate state. What's May said? Oh, if we walk away, then we'll become a tax haven. And brilliant. Okay, well, tax havens, they're great to live in, aren't they? All the things that people don't like about corporatism will just concentrate here. But actually, that's almost a best case, because there are other tax havens, aren't there? And if you're competing with tax havens for money, then your workers are going to have to accept the deal that people get in those tax havens. So whatever happens, the best case that will happen with Brexit is that we are just slightly worse off than now. This is if we get a deal where we have access to almost everything, and we'll have to pay a lot of money still. And best case, it will be kind of the same. But what sort of best case is that? It's going to cost us billions to negotiate. It's going to take years of the government not doing much else. I mean, in some ways that's a good thing, right? Tory government's not doing much else. But it's just the misguided. I mean, people say get over it. What I'm trying to say is I am angry if you voted leave. You have personally damaged my children's freedom and their opportunities, and I take it very personally. And whether that's through ignorance or because you actually wanted to do that, I don't really care. You have a chance for redemption. Your redemption is you join the voices for joining the EU when we leave, or even better, not leaving the EU. Because what's happened is this vote, where people have a sense of kind of underlying unfairness, has been hijacked by the far right to just implement everything they've always wanted to implement. And you wait. We've already got record numbers of EU staff leaving the NHS, which is already almost crippled anyway by the Tories. We've already had obviously the assaults and incidents of racial harassment and worse on the streets. I don't know. I mean, you've got to worry about the future. It's bleak, but you've got to get involved to try and fight it. Whether you voted leave or remain, it's everyone's fight now, because this is actually a crucial time. It's a crucial time in politics. It's a case of whether or not you think we can stop Brexit. It's a case of standing up and being counted. It's standing up to the Little Englanders and the bigots and the people who say, well, why should you want to travel? Why should you want to live abroad? Because that's free. It's a freedom we've had. We should be aiming for a world without borders, and that might sound idealistic, but a world without borders between countries which are roughly the same is perfectly doable. In fact, we've had it for 40 years, right? All these Brits living in Spain going, oh, I voted Brexit because there's too many immigrants. And they are immigrants. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. Yes, the old people will die off. And yes, then the majority of people left would have been Remain voters. And of course, 70% of young people did vote Remain. So their futures have been stolen by people who don't represent them. Let's try and fix it. And the way to fix it is to get active politically. go on your marches, join a political party that opposes Brexit. Do something about it. Write to your MPs, because actually it isn't something that's a done and dusted deal. It's something we can change. It's something we can lessen. It's something we can actually bring into the public consciousness, things that are good about Europe, because actually there are lots of things that are good about Europe. There's lots of things that are bad about Europe, but ultimately people have voted to take away their own freedoms and, more importantly, other people's freedoms, and that can never be allowed to stand, not on the basis of no benefits. I mean, there is absolutely no benefit to leaving the EU. You know, you've said immigration isn't going to change. Not that I think immigration is a problem. Surely even the Brexiters are now wondering why they did it, because this is going to cost us billions at best. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now. But I'm pretty angry today. Article 50 is a bunch of MPs who know they're doing the wrong thing, voting for the wrong thing because they're cowards. They're cowards. They're scared of the far-right tabloids that run this country. They're scared of losing their jobs. And they should be, and I hope they all lose their jobs. Well, all the ones who didn't vote to fight Article 50. I hope they do all lose their jobs, because they are doing a massive disservice to this country. We're a laughingstock internationally. The whole thing is a shaming incident really, of self-flagellation, and it's like pressing the self-destruct button, isn't it? On some ridiculously, I don't know. The similes are gone. But anyway, do something about it, because being angry is not good enough. Doing something about it is what we all have to get on board with.